take a day today before you leave. If there's somebody you don't know their name, sneak a peek. Because the goal would be, there's only 15 of us, right? We should know each other's names. And if you don't, just go ahead and peek around and try to learn people's names. Because again, it's the first step to us being a family. Did anybody else feel like that was just pure pandemonium craziness?
I love it.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Loved it?
Yeah.
Thank you for embracing it, for being a good sport. Well, welcome to Pandemonium Church, called the crazy pastor named Matt. No, but I'm super glad that you guys are here. This is your first time. Hello, welcome. My name is Matt. We are really glad that you guys are here. We are a family. And so we embrace the craziness, we embrace the uncertainty. We do try to get to know each other. So this is your first time. Grace, glad you're here. Give us a little grace as it's a little crazy. Like Brian said, we are in the final week of our values series, right? So new life. Maybe you're new to the church. This is perfect. And you're trying to figure out, what are we about? Like, what are we passionate about? What are we doing here? What's it all about? This series is hopefully just to lay the foundation of what it is we're trying to do. Like Brian said, week one was we are committed to being a family. It's not just some flavor of church. That's not just something we want to say. It's really something we want to embrace. We want this to be a place where you are known, where it's safe to share, where you can come in with smudged makeup because you've been crying all day. We want this to be a place where you don't have to feel like you need to put on a happy face, but you can truly embrace how you're feeling. Where we can celebrate each other. We can rejoice when there's time to rejoice and mourn when there's time to mourn. That's what we mean when we want it to be a family. And so 2020, we talked about we're going to do quarterly dinners. We're going to do a lot of things that are hopefully going to push us closer and closer together. And I know, right, deep down we want it, but we're also scared and we're introverts sometimes, and we do, but we really believe that God has called all of us to know each other better than the strangers outside. Hopefully we can be families. So that was week one. And week two was about this idea of making disciples. That New Life wouldn't be a place of consumers. That New Life wouldn't be a place where you come in for a week, hear a message, feel good about yourself, leave 6 days later, don't really think about God, come back a day later, next Sunday, get your high. Like that idea, it's not what we're about. We didn't plant a church so we could fill it and have an auditorium and have a TED Talk, right? We truly want to make disciples. We want to take Jesus' words of picking up your cross and following me seriously. And we know that we have to contextualize that in 2020 and what does it mean. And we know it's not as simple sometimes as we say, but we want to make disciples. And I'll be straight up front with everybody. My goal is that each and every one of you would move from wherever you're at to a disciple of Jesus. And not only a disciple, but a disciple who makes disciples. And that was kind of last week's sermon, that a disciple will always make disciples. And here we are, week 3, finishing up what it is that New Life is about and passion. Anybody know what tonight's about? Serving Tustin, right? We are here to serve Tustin. So let me say a prayer, and I'll kind of jump into where we got that. God, we thank you, Lord, that you are here. We are thankful, Lord, that we are all known by you. God, we are a family to you. We are your children. You know the hairs on our head. You know the white and red blood cells in our bodies. You can count them. You know us so well. God, we just pray that for a few minutes we can hear from our Father right now. Words of encouragement, words of wisdom, words of conviction. Whatever you have for us, Lord, would you speak it? And may we hear it and hold on to it, because they're the words of our God and our Father. So, Lord, we pray against distractions. We pray and ask for our minds to slow down and our hearts to be open. And in Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen.
So if you're interested in where did we get this idea of serving Tustin, why is it so important to us? You have to go to the very, very beginning of your Bible. Open up to Genesis chapter 12. And this is where we find the origins of this value. I don't know if you know, serving Tustin gets its origins in Genesis a few thousand years earlier, actually. So go to Genesis chapter 12. This is one of my favorite stories in the whole Bible. This is God calling a man named Abram. Right up until this point, there's been floods, there's been towers of Babel, there's been all sorts of craziness. And God's going to start something new. He's going to make his own people group. He's going to finally have a family specifically for him. And so let's read Genesis chapter 12. We're going to read 1 through 4. The Lord had said to Abram, "Leave your native country, your relatives, and your father's family, and go to the land that I will show you. I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you and make you famous, and you will be a blessing to others. I will bless those who bless you and curse those who treat you with contempt. All the families on earth will be blessed through you. Stop. So this is the origins of the nation of Israel. This is the very beginning of the children of God, the people of God, kind of being assembled. And I don't know if you caught it, but there's two kind of defining characteristics for the people of God. Did you catch it? The first would be, you and your family will be blessed by God. Imagine being told that the God who created everything we know is going to bless you specifically in your family. But if you notice, there's a second characteristic that's really unique. And that was, Abram, I'm going to bless you so that you can be a blessing to others. It's this idea that God's going to bless Abram and his family and the Israelites more than any other people group on the entire planet. And in return, the Israelites would bless those around them more than any people group on the planet. It's this twofold calling that makes Israel really, really unique. And if you read the Old Testament, there's some really random verses that they're not going to make sense unless you have Genesis 12 in your mind. Let me give you an example. You guys don't need to turn there. Look at Leviticus chapter 23. Raise your hand if you read Leviticus this week. Alright, a few. No, it's not usually what we go to. Look at this verse. And let's read how crazy this sounds. And let's just be real with each other. It's a weird verse, right? When you harvest the crops of your land, do not harvest the grain along the edges of your fields. And do not pick up what the harvesters drop. Don't go to the next verse. Go back. So look at this random verse. Where it feels like this is the God of the Old Testament being really legalistic. Hey, Israelites, like when you pick your grain, leave the edges alone. Don't do that. And you read this and you go, this is classic God and his rules. Classic Old Testament, it all got right and wrong. And you see this, and it really doesn't make sense. Until you read the next verse, which most people don't keep reading Leviticus, 22b, it says, leave it for the poor and the foreigners living among you. I am the Lord your God. So basically, God is saying, Israel, you're going to have a ton of crops because I'm going to bless you. But you're only going to pick 80% of them because the other 20% goes to those around you. It's kind of beautiful. Look at this other one. Let's go to Leviticus chapter 19. It's the same with your grape drop. I love that wording. That's straight from the Bible. Do not strip every last bunch of grapes from the vines. And do not pick up the grapes that fall to the ground. So pause. Imagine you're picking grapes and one drops. You're not allowed to pick it up. Again, you read it, what does God care? He tells me how to pick my grapes. He's micromanaging my crops. And again, it looks like a legalistic God. And you read again. Look at the next verse. Leave them for the poor and the foreigners living among you. I am the Lord your God. God says, you drop a grape, too bad. You don't get your grape, and somebody else gets it now. Hey, you get to pick your harvest, pick them up, but leave the edges. Why? Because we need to provide for the poor and the foreigners among you. There's a famous Bible story of someone named Ruth. And Ruth and her family survived only because of these laws. They were basically homeless, they were poor, they had nobody to provide, and the reason Ruth and her family didn't starve to death was literally verses like this. And what I love about this is God is designing rules to remind the Israelites of their original calling, which was what? I will bless you so you will be a blessing to others. I will be your God, and I will give you so much, but you will not hoard it. You will always share it. And so these rules are subtle reminders that God goes, look, it's never only been about you, Israel. There's the poor, there's the foreigners, there's the marginalized. We need to look after. When I hear like televangelists or I talk to Christians, we love talking about the first part of this, which is God blessing us. Right? You hear a lot of Christians talking about God bless me with this, God bless me with this. Or maybe it's a prayer request, God, will you bless me with this promotion? Will you bless me with this? We're really big on the blessings of God. But you don't hear as often the second part, God's supposed to then be a blessing to others. We pray for the promotion at work. We want the blessing. But we rarely ask God, show me how I can be a blessing to my coworkers. We pray for the apartment to open up. And yet we very rarely ask God, may I be a blessing to those in the living room. We, the church, we clung to the first characteristic. We love when the blessings of Yahweh come to us. But if you look, that was never supposed to be the end-all be-all. It was always blessed to be a blessing. Yes, I'm going to bless you. Not so you can hoard it, so you can bless others. I want you to fast forward. Go to Isaiah chapter 58. This is about, let's say, roughly 1,000 years later. Let's check in on the nation of Israel, and let's see how they're doing so far. Go to Isaiah chapter 58. Is there? Anybody beat me? Not there? 58, almost. Got it. Okay. Isaiah 58. Let's read verse 2, shall we? I always read from the NLT, so if you got it on your phone, click over to NLT if you want to follow word for word. And let's just read verse 2. Let's check in how the nation of Israel is doing with this concept of blessed to be a blessing. Okay, it says, they act so pious. They come to the temple every day. Okay, that's pretty good so far. And they seem delighted to learn all about me. Not bad. They act like a righteous nation that would never abandon the laws of its God. They ask you to take action on their behalf, praying to God, and pretending that they want to be near me. So stop. So go to the nation of Israel. What we know so far is they're making a really big deal of coming to the temple, aka attending church. Not bad. They're making the Torah and the laws of God an important thing to them. Sounds good. They're praying for God's will to be done. You would look at this and you'd say, they're doing pretty good. They're doing religious activities. God's got to be pleased, right? Look at verse 4, because these are some bold words by God himself. Verse 4, let's read to verse 10. God says, what good is fasting when you keep on fighting and quarreling? This kind of fasting will never get you anywhere with me. You humble yourselves by going through the motions of penance, bowing your heads like reeds bending in the wind. Jump down to verse 6. Look what God has to say here. He goes, this is actually the kind of fasting that I want. Free those who are wrongly imprisoned. Lighten the burden of those who work for you. Let the oppressed go free, and remove the chains that bind people. Share your food with the hungry. Give shelter to the homeless. Give clothes to those who need them, and do not hide from relatives who need your help. Then your salvation will come like the dawn, and your wounds will quickly heal. Your godliness will lead you forward, and the glory of the Lord will protect you from behind. So let's stop. So God actually looks at all their religious activity, and he goes, I'm not that pleased. And he goes, you really want to impress me? He says, this is the type of fasting I want. And this is the type of worship that I want. Feed the hungry. Give clothing to those who need it. If there's wrongly imprisoned people and there's injustice in your land, do something about it. See, Israel forgot what it meant to be the people of God. They thought that it just entails enjoying God. We go to the temple. We obey the laws. We ask his blessing. We ask him to intervene in our life. But by all accounts, they were doing all of the first part, enjoying a relationship with God. But they forgot there's this whole other part. Blessed to be a blessing. It's really interesting. Because in a way, it translates that we can make a joyful noise inside here. And if our worship doesn't spill into the streets, God doesn't hear it. And let me say that again, because this should kind of sober us up. We can sing songs and we can lift up a powerful noise. It can be electric. The hair on the back of our heads, necks can stand up. And if the worship doesn't ever leave these walls and spill out to those around us, God doesn't hear it. See, like the nation of Israel, churches today and pastors today, we have these false measurements of a healthy church. A lot of times I get caught up that as long as you guys are attending, and you're tithing, and you're serving, and you're singing, and you're part of a small group, I think we're doing pretty good. Right? That's a good church. That's a healthy church. Just like the nation of Israel. Like God, we're obeying your laws. We're going to the temple. We ask for your will to be done. And we, like them, forget what it means to be the people of God. That we would have this incredible relationship. That it would always spill into others. We would be blessed to be a blessing. I read this critique, and I immediately wonder if he would say, New Life, you've forgotten what it means to be the people of God. Look at this verse in James. If you think this is kind of an isolated thing, look at James 1:27. You don't need to turn there. Look what James says. He says, pure and genuine religion in the sight of God the Father means caring for orphans and widows in their distress and refusing to let the world corrupt you. Again, James is piggybacking on the call to Abram. Hey, real religion, worship, the kind of fasting that God desires. Caring for the poor, the broken, and the marginalized that are all around him. I don't think James wants us to zone in on actual widows and orphans as much as open our eyes to the marginalized, those who have no one to help them. And I just wonder if this critique would be said of us. I want to show it one more way. I want to fast forward one more time. We started with Abram in Genesis. We fast forward about 1,000 years to the nation of Israel. Let's see what Jesus has to say on this and see if you guys are tracking with what I'm tracking. Go to Matthew chapter 25. So now this is a long way since the original call to Abram. So let's see what Jesus does. Does he abolish it? Does he add to it? Let's see. Matthew chapter 25. Let's read verse 31 to 33 and we'll stop. So I want you guys to open this up because this is really powerful. This is Jesus talking in verse 31. He says, but when the Son of Man, aka me, himself, comes in his glory and all the angels with him, then he will sit upon his glorious throne and all the nations will be gathered in his presence. And he will separate the people as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will place the sheep at his right hand and the goats at his left. So pause. So far, this is what we'd expect. God's going to judge the world. And for most of us, we're quite aware that it's going to be separated. Sheep and goats. Now, for most of us, you'd say, well, the separation is going to be based on who went to church, who served, who sang. A lot of times I think that separation is going to come, and it's going to be based on who does the churchy things. And yet that's not what he says. Let's look what he says the separation is actually about. Look at verse 34. Then the king will say to those on his right, come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the creation of the world. Watch this. For I was hungry, and you fed me. I was thirsty, and you gave me a drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me into your home. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you cared for me. I was in prison, and you visited me. Verse 37, then these righteous ones will reply, Lord, the ones who were separated to the right side, you could say, Lord, when did we ever see you hungry and feed you? Jesus, I think you got the wrong people. When were you thirsty and did we ever give you something to drink? Or a stranger and show you hospitality? Or naked and give you clothing? When did we ever see you sick or in prison and visit you? Look at verse 40. And the king will say, I tell you the truth. When you did it to one of the least of these brothers, you were doing it for me. Let's look at how the other people turned out. Then the king will turn to those on the left, the goats. He says, away from you, you cursed ones, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his demons. For I was hungry and you didn't feed me. I was thirsty and you didn't give me a drink. I was a stranger and you didn't invite me into your home. I was naked and you didn't give me clothing. I was sick and in prison and you didn't visit me. And they're going to say, hold seen you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or naked or sick or in prison? Where was this? And he will answer, I'll tell you the truth. When you refused to help the least of my brothers and sisters, you were refusing help to me. So Jesus says, hey, the judgment, a lot of it's going to be based on your care for the poor, the marginalized, the hungry, the naked, the imprisoned. And those of us who sit in church, we're going to say, well, hold on. I've been going to church for 20 years. I've been doing all the religious activity you commanded me to do. And Jesus is going to say, you forgot. The people of God are always blessed to be a blessing. Now, you got sucked into religious activity. Forget it. But the call was always, there's people around us who need our love, who need our help, who need us to be a blessing to them. I read this, and I wonder if someday God will separate churches. The churches who were really good at the things inside the walls, and the churches who were also allowed their worship to spill outside the walls. And I don't know, but I can tell you deep in my heart, I want New Life to be a church that's a sheep, that gave water to Jesus, that gave clothing to him. If someone said, why is it important, Matt, to serve Tustin? My answer is very simple. It's because Jesus lives in Tustin.
Amen.
Well, why do you do these things? Why does it matter? I'd say, because Jesus is hungry right over there. And Jesus is facing injustice right around the corner. And Jesus hasn't had a warm meal in a long time. And so why is it important? Because our God lives there. And it's really easy to say, what are you talking about? Jesus. And then we read this, and it kind of opens our eyes. Oh my goodness. I love telling the story because I don't know if a lot of people know the origins of our name, New Life. I'm just going to be really vulnerable. I don't claim, I hope someday I can grow in it. I don't claim direct prophecy very often. And yet this hit me as clear as a brick to the head. When I was praying about names, because we used to be called Prodigal, as I was praying about new names and new identity, clear as day, it was, I'm going to breathe new life into this family, and you will take that new life and breathe it into Tustin. And I wrote it down, I signed it and dated my journal, and I dropped the pen, it was in awe. And I immediately went, God, we're new life. But I look back to even that prophecy, and it wasn't, I'm going to breathe new life into you guys, and you're going to experience abundance and blessing and happiness and eternal joy so that you can be a blessed people group. It was, I'm going to breathe new life into you so you can breathe new life into Tustin. Here's the $1 million question that we have to ask ourselves. Is if New Life was to leave Tustin, would the city notice? So think about that. Let's just be real, right? So we get up and we leave. Does the city notice? I'm always fascinated by stories where like a big corporation skips town and what happens to that city. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the town Flint, Michigan. You guys heard of that? Right? It's probably one of the poorest cities in our nation. Like, I know it's crazy for us to think that there could be like third world living conditions, and yet that's kind of the case in Flint. But yet, what's crazy is Flint used to be a booming city. Like super booming with business. It's where GMC had its first plants. And when the car industry was blowing up, all of the motors from GMC and all of the production and all of the facilities was in Flint. And Flint was booming. It was rich. It was the place to be. And then one day, they bounce. GMC bounces. And the city just takes a dive. Because that's how much they depended on GMC. And if a corporation can have that kind of effect on a city, shouldn't the people of God have equal, if not more? Like, I'm not saying that if we left, I'd want Tustin to go down the drain. But I'm saying I hope we left a big enough footprint that if we left, they'd notice. That we're so intertwined with the needs of our community that if we left, there'd be some holes. I love the idea of a church kind of silently, never drawing attention to itself, plugging the little holes in the city. Not saying, look at me. Not saying, look how good we are. Just silently assessing where there's some cracks. And going full on like Flex Seal. You guys know that? I love infomercials. Thank you, Jim Ryan. I love that. Being glued to the cracks of our city. Because why? Because that's what the people of God are called to do. Blessed to be a blessing. New life. If someone says, why is it important to you that you serve your city? Say it's very simple. I give 2 answers. Say Jesus lives right down the street. And I want to make sure I give him that cold glass of water that he needs. And secondly, say because I come from a rich tradition of the people of God who have always been blessed to be blessed. And I want us to make a joyful noise in here. I want us to sing passionate. I want us to open up scripture. I want all of the things I said. I just want the worship to spill out into the streets. Let's talk for a second. How are we going to do this? Like, let's be super vulnerable. I, even as a pastor, struggled with this because we were in Irvine for a few years, and it felt really hard to plug the holes in Irvine. Can we be honest? Obviously, our flexible labor acted on it more than we did. And we had more cracks in the church than the city. It's kind of backwards, like city, can you help us? Being a building and a lot of issues, we won't go there. It was like reversed, right? And I don't know, but it was always hard for me. I was like, I don't know how to love my city. I don't know how to serve my city. And then God calls us to Tustin. And I'm not that I compare to, but I'm really excited to step into this. Like, I'm really excited to finally assess and say, here we are, the people of God, ready to bless the city. And so let's show you, I'm going to tell you some ways we've been doing it and how we're going to do it even more in 2020. So do you guys see this oatmeal sculpture? Did any of the new people just wonder if we had a weird fascination with oatmeal? I'm sorry if we didn't explain this up front. It looks like a shrine to Quaker Mr. Oates. We donate to an organization called Nana's Kids. And Nana's Kids gives these meals, along with a lot of other things, to families who are hungry. So again, even in our backyard, in Tustin, in Rich Orange County, there are kids and families who are only fed through the school system. So Monday through Friday, they get their breakfast and they get their lunch provided for free by the state, by the city. But then what happens on the weekends? And what happens on summer break? And what happens on Christmas break? And the sad reality is many of these Orange County families go hungry. And so Nana's Kids tries to bridge the gap, tries to fill that crack and say, hey, we notice these kids aren't getting fed, let's do something about it. So when we try to make really big pushes for oatmeal, like we're really passionate about it because we want to help our city. So part of the way that we partner with Nana's Kids, just to fill everybody in, is we collect food. Every month we do a different food. But then we distribute the bags. Tim and Meredith got to do it just this week, and I love getting the photos. Where are you guys? It was separate, so it's throwing me out. I love that this week Tim and Meredith got to deliver the bags. Eddie did it the week before. There's been a lot of you. The Moores have done it a few times. It's this beautiful moment. We actually get to see our city, and not by drawing attention, but just deliver this blessing. And so this would be our goal, though, is that those of you guys who are participating in Nana's Kids, it wouldn't just be a select few. Like, this isn't guilt trip. This is your straight up answer. I'm going to ask you, how have you been contributing to Nana's Kids this past 6 months that we've been doing? Because my hope and my prayer would that when we announce, hey, for this month we're going to be collecting canned spaghetti, that you guys get psyched to fill this stage with canned spaghetti. That you guys realize, oh my goodness, this is my calling. This is what it means to be the people of God. I'm going to overflow that stage with canned spaghetti. Or, I can't wait to deliver it. And so we're going to continue doing our partnership with Nana's Kids in 2020, and I want to call more of you guys to be a part of it. Like, if money is tight, and you're like, man, I can't buy canned spaghetti, then that's great. I need you to volunteer giving it away. Man, I'm too busy. I don't work. I work Fridays when you guys do the distribution, doesn't work. I say, okay, you better donate more oatmeal than anybody else. Okay? Pick one. You got no time or come Monday, let's talk, we'll do some counseling. And I'm kidding. I know it's not that simple. But I don't want this to be a select few. I don't want the top 20% of New Life to be invested in this, and the other 80% watch. I hope that all of you guys can cite what is the food this month, and what are the delivery dates? Let me request it off work. Let me do it. Let me set it aside. Let me get a babysitter because this is what it means to be the people of God. And even in 2020, we're trying to step into something else. And there's two ideas we're kicking around. The Tustin Unified School District has opened up that they need help with ESL coaches and teachers, English second language. That there's a ton of people in our backyard who are struggling with English. It makes it hard to get a job, it makes it hard to go to school, and they're looking for teachers and coaches. It's one of the things that we're kicking around for 2020. Do we really jump into this? There's a senior center right down the street called Sunrise Senior Center. We're praying and kicking around the idea about volunteering there and serving their needs. So this is the one that's most in process. I wish I could say, here are our super clear programs of how we're going to do it in 2020, and it's not super clear, but I can tell you where our heart is, and I can tell you where we're going. And I want to extend the invitation that we need a little help. So right now, there's some of us leadership, we're the ones calling Sunrise, and I'm the one emailing these English second language teachers. And I would love for some of you to go, man, I'm passionate about this. Let me help make some of these connections. Let me help make some of these partners. Because right now, the biggest partnership we have is Nana's Kids, which I love, but we want to branch out even a little bit more. So in 2020, I hope you guys are seeing why serving Tustin is so important. And I hope you hear me, that we're hoping to step into this more than we ever have. I'm hoping to pass out more food bags than we ever have. I'm hoping to build more crafts than we've ever had. Not so we can get attention, not so we can be famous, simply because the people of God are always blessed to be blessed. And so I want you to encourage you guys. You're like, man, I don't live in Tustin. I'm in Anaheim Hills, and I came from Fullerton, or I came from wherever. That this idea, this concept applies to everywhere you are. That you're right now asking, God, how can I be a blessing to my neighbors? And God, my coworkers that I just throw my headbuds and I just check out, what if I plug them out and actually start engaging to be a blessing to them? All of us are called to serve and be a blessing to those around us. And I hope that as I'm asking, what happens to the Tustin if we leave? I hope that you'd be asking the same question. If I left my company, does anybody notice? If I left my neighborhood, does anybody notice? Because the people of God should be noticed. When the Israelites packed up and left town, that town was not the same. Because God was with those people. And wherever God was, drastically changed the surrounding areas. And I want to encourage you as stay-at-home moms, as working professionals, as college students, whatever you are, simply ask, if I leave my place of blank, what happens? And if you, like me, maybe came to the conclusion, not a lot, that instead of feeling shame and guilt, you just say, God, help me to step into it. Help me to reclaim the identity you put on Abram and the people of God. God, help me to be the sheep that get separated and be the ones that give lasting water. If you're hearing this going, this is just a serve Tustin sermon, you're missing it. This serve Tustin is how New Life steps into it immediately, but all of us take this calling to all of our surrounding circles. So let's ask the question, God, what does it look like to be a blessing to those around us? I love asking for God to bless us, but today I want to leave part one alone, and I want to simply ask part two, God, what does it look like to be a blessing to my neighbors, my coworkers, and the city? So I want you guys to bow your heads. God, would you continue to show us right now just what that means, Lord? May the words that you gave to Abraham ring so true in our hearts. May that bold declaration that you made in Isaiah, may that speak to our hearts. And may Jesus' own words of declaring, I am in these houses, I am in these ESL programs, I am in these school lunch programs, may the words of Jesus not be able to get out of our heads.